Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra's Lair. I'm your host, Larry the Chupacabra, and today we're doing an OBS Multiplatform Edition tutorial talking about how to set things up for both streaming and local recording and the different sorts of settings that go into each one. This is the companion tutorial, in a way, to the original OBS tutorial that I did forever ago. But since they started offering support for Mac and Linux as well as Windows, they've gone into the multi-platform edition, which has a lot of differences between where all the settings are kept and some of the names and terminology, so we're going to explain some of that today. So, to get started, just jump in to, well, OBS, and make sure whatever game you want to record is running in the background before you start it up. I've got Dark Souls 2 sitting up in the background, so you can probably hear some of that music in the background of this video. And just hit the settings button and we'll just get into the nitty-gritty. So the first panel is the General tab, and the General tab includes language settings to make sure if you're not a primary English speaker that you have your language of choice selected in there, so none of this is too confusing. And then you've got your choice of two themes. You can make your OBS look dark and mysterious, or you can leave it at the default, which is just like sort of like whatever your Windows system is using. I'm using Windows 10, so it's kind of got that flat, very sharp, pointy edges, white theme going on. Actually, I'm going to set it to dark, just for kicks. So that's what the General tab is. It's just visuals and the correct language. And then we've got the settings for streaming. So, depending on the streaming service of your choice, most people probably use either Twitch or Hitbox or YouTube. You can come into the streaming tab and select your primary service, like let's say we're going to use Hitbox, and then select the server most closest to you. I'm in Colorado, so I'm going to go with US West Los Angeles, and then somewhere inside of your settings on your profile when you're logged into Twitch or Hitbox or whatever service you have going, somewhere they should have listed a stream key that you can show, and you copy and paste and put that into here, and that little sequence of numbers ensures that your stream, your video, goes to the correct profile, so it doesn't end up on the profile of some guy who lives and works in, say, like, Greece. You know, that would be kind of awkward, especially because I don't know if they're primary English speakers over there. So pop that in there, and then you should be good to go. If your streaming service of preference does not show up on this little services list, do not worry, don't freak out. Just head up here to this top tab that says Stream Type, and pull it down and select Custom Streaming Server. And then you can just pop in your stream URL. They should have like a server URL that they provide you in the back end of their service. Even Twitch does, because they assume that, you know, some of you might be using like a custom program to do your video streaming. They don't know, and they don't judge. And then you can pop in your stream key, and you should be good to go. Some services out there do require you to log in via your stream with your username and password. They should let you know about that. If not, check their fact page section, and then you can put your username and password here, and then you should be able to log into their streaming servers. And that's the primary way that you log in for your streams. There is some more information about how you set up streaming quality and stuff in the next output section, so don't go anywhere. You still need some of this information, you crazies. Alright, so next thing, for your primary, you know, video quality control and your video file type bread and butter, that's all going to be controlled underneath of output. So, there's a couple different modes here. There's the simple mode, which is very simple and straightforward, and it's for people who just don't really want to mess with fine-tuning settings and just kind of want to get started and get going. That's what's covered under the simple mode, which is what we'll be talking about in this video. And there's also the advanced mode, which allows you to set up like what kind of encoder you're using. Like here I can use my AMD encoder, but we're not going to cover that for this tutorial, just because this can get kind of technical. It also lets you change, like you can record multiple audio tracks and stuff. But unless you know how to do some of that stuff and what goes into that, you may not want to mess around with that until you're a little bit more versed in messing around with OBS. So the first panel here, we've got two sections, streaming and recording, and you can set these up a little bit differently, but the main thing to know here is in streaming, video bitrate is basically your video quality. The higher the bitrate, the more information that the computer is allowed to write into each second of your video file. So video bitrate basically just means that the higher the number, the bigger the superhighway of information the computer is allowed to have to cram as many things and deliciousness into that video file as you need, require, or want. Now, there is a limitation on this for streaming purposes. For most streaming services, their maximum video bitrate that they allow you to use is 3500 to upload to their server, otherwise things would just get a little bit crazy. And this number is in kilobits per second, so that's 3,500 kilobits per second, or about like, kind of like a little over 3-ish megabytes worth of data that are being crammed up there to Twitches or Hitboxes or whoever server at any given time. And then the other bitrate down here is your audio bitrate. You generally want that to be as high as possible. That's just 320 kilobits per second. Anything higher than like, I don't know, I think most services probably want you to use 128 or 192, but they don't get mad at you if you get higher, and this will just improve your local recording bitrate so that your voice sounds even better if you want to upload your videos after editing them to places like YouTube or, I don't know, maybe some people put on Vimeo. And then if you find that your computer is having some taxing problems, if it's getting low frame rate, if things are getting choppy and kind of laggy, click on this Enable Advanced Encoder Settings checkbox here, and here under Encoder Preset, you can go from very fast to ultra fast, and that setting will basically tell your computer, prioritize computer performance over video quality. Because if you have a really choppy video performance, or computer performance, your video is also going to be really choppy, and no one's gonna really want to watch that. So it's better to slightly kill your quality to get better performance than it is to do the opposite. So this is what you would use if you had like an older computer, or if you just kind of want to like sneak in some slightly higher settings for that video game. I don't really need to do that because I got a nice powerful rig here, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. Now, next off, down here in recording, you can select your recording location. Here under recording path, you just click browse, and then I can select, where do I want to put this? Let's put it under my free space folder, and then I think I had, oh, here we go, game capture. And I'll put it in here under game capture files, so that I've got lots of room on that extra hard drive. It'll go straight there, and presto changeo. And then we can select some change-ups here from the recording quality. So you have some options here. You can set your recording quality to the same as your video stream, which will be very, like, low resource demand on your computer, but the trouble here is that's going to use this video bitrate number that we've selected for streaming, and that's not a very good quality video when you want to put something up specifically for YouTube. So you can set it so that it's the same as stream if you want to have fine-tuned controls over your video quality and you're not intending to stream. If you're going to do that, I suggest using a bitrate, something like 15,000 kilobits per second or up to 25,000 kilobits per second. And then when you put it into a video editor and export it, it retains more of that video quality before it goes to YouTube, and it gets hyper compressed down to like a few hundred megabytes. YouTube recommends that you upload all of your videos at 8,000 kilobits per second or 8 megabytes per second, roughly. So otherwise, if you're just gonna do streaming, I'd suggest setting it at 3,500, and if you save videos onto your computer, set it to do a high quality medium file size or an indistinguishable quality large file size, and just ignore that little message there at the bottom. That's just warning you that your computer might not be able to handle the file size or the requirements if it's a little bit older. And then down here for recording format, most of the time you're going to want to set it to MP4 recording format. MP4 is used by just about everybody. It can be read by Mac, it can be read by PC. FLV is the Flash video format. It's a little bit stabler and it's a little smaller, but it doesn't always play nice with, well, pretty much anything. A lot of video editors don't like it anymore. Windows doesn't really like it, so I'd suggest setting it to MP4 or MOV, but for MOV, that's an Apple file format. You'd have to install QuickTime to use that on your computer, so we'll just select MP4. And then for your software encoder, I would suggest just leaving this at X264, but if you know what you're doing, and you want to kind of like just deal with slightly bigger file sizes, slightly less CPU demand, you could select this other X264 preset, and you should be seeing a little bit better improvement in your overall video recording performance. This doesn't, when I tested this out a little bit ago, this doesn't seem to make a horrendously larger video file sizes than setting it on normal, but then again, it's going to depend on your computer and your CPU, so mileage may vary. So that's all we really need to mess around with in here. This stuff is all fine in general. Again, if you want to fine-tune your video bit rates, just set this to be same as stream and then up the ante on your video bitrate. But if you want to stream and record, that's when you mess around with the recording quality, leaving it at high quality. So we'll just hit apply to save those settings, and now we're going to jump down here to our audio. For sample rate, you want 48 kilohertz, which is the best setting. You'll have to restart OBS for that to take effect. You want to have stereo channels. That's how, you know, you get audio in both sets of your earphones or on both sides of your speaker setup. That's like 2 channels of audio. And then for your first desktop audio device, you want to select whatever device your audio is being played through. If it's through your headset that you're listening to it, you want to set it up to be your headset. Mine is currently going through my Elgato capture card so that I can record both my computer and OBS at the same time. Then for your mic device, you're going to want to select whatever microphone you have selected in your computer that you use to say words to people, and then just select it right here. Now OBS can both hear your game sounds and also your microphone sounds. And then if you want to mess around with any of these other settings, like enabling push to mute or push to talk, that will be all up to you. I don't really use that stuff because I just edit my audio on like the back end after I've already done recording it. I do some post-processing and then I throw it up onto YouTube. So next up, we've got the videos department. For renderers, you've got 2 options. I suggest leaving it on Direct3D 11. Direct3D 11 is basically DirectX 11. It's the software that is used on your computer to render out the vast majority of games. Depending on the game you're trying to record, sometimes it's a little better to use OpenGL, but I would only recommend switching from Direct3D 11 if you see like a forum post where a moderator suggests doing so for various different games. For video adapters, mine's not available to select a different video adapter, but if you can pull down this video menu, select whichever graphics card is the best inside of your computer so that it uses the most powerful device instead of trying to use, like, say, an onboard graphics card attached to your CPU, which is going to be far less powerful. So then down here we've got the base canvas resolution. This should just be whatever resolution your monitor is at. And then you can tell it if you want to downscale your video at all. I don't, because again, I have a pretty powerful rig. If you find your rig is a little slower, you might want to set it down to 1280 by 720, which is 720p, and that will slightly improve computer performance. But otherwise, just leave it at 1920 by 1080. And if you do downscale it, you're going to want to select either bicubic or bilinear filtering. It basically just determines how sharp things look when you're moving around a lot. Languedo's filtering, the sharpest one. It's not a huge improvement over bicubic for most video games recording, so I just recommend saving that at bicubic. If you're not downscaling your video to a smaller size while you record, then that doesn't matter. It's going to ignore that setting. Okay, so here's the part where we've all been waiting for. I'm sure I'm a part of the PC Master Race, you're a part of the PC Master Race because you're using OBS, obviously. All glory to the PC Master Race, all that stuff. Here's the deal. If your computer runs most games at 60 frames per second or above, then by all means, set your frame rate value to 60 FPS. If your computer's not running at 60 FPS, if it's consistently running below at like 46 FPS, then set your frame rate down to 30. Why do you do this? Doesn't it improve things if I record in 60? If you're not getting 60, you're not going to be able to record 60. All that setting it to 60 frames per second is going to do is it's going to give OBS permission to record up to 60 frames per second, and then anything above that, it's going to throw away the extra data. Similarly to 30 frames per second, it's going to record up to 30, and then everything else is going to get thrown away. If you're not getting 60 frames per second, then after it's compressed on YouTube, it's going to look choppy, it's going to look a little bit jittery, and people are going to know that you're trying to cheat, and it's not going to look very good. So it's better then, if you're not getting that full 60, to downgrade to 30 FPS so that it looks nice, smooth, and while it's not as cool, because everyone's running around with 60 frames these days, including yours truly, it's better in the long run because it'll look better and people will have a better experience watching your videos. So that's the little spiel about all of that. I'm going to click apply to make sure we save all the settings we've messed with so far. And then down here in hotkeys, I usually just use the buttons here on the main page for OBS. But if you want, you can set some hotkeys to start your stream, stop your stream, start recording, stop recording, switch your different scenes around, mute stuff, unmute stuff. I don't really use that, so if you want to mess around with that and set your own hotkeys, that's up to you. All of that's handled right in this panel. And then last but not least, you've got the advanced settings panel. Most of this stuff you don't really need to mess with. This is like stream delays and stream buffers. If you don't know what these do and you don't really want to spend a lot of time messing with them, just leave these at default. There's really no reason to mess around with these a lot unless you're, say, recording a live League of Legends match and you don't want people to watch your stream and cheat. Then you can click enable stream delay, and then you can add in seconds like a minute-long delay of 60 seconds, and that'll increase your memory usage on your computer by 25 megabytes, but it's fine. But most of this stuff is just like streaming and color formats. Again, if you don't know what these are, don't mess with them, because you could end up with a Jolly Green Giant video where everything looks kind of pea green. And that's gonna look gross. Don't mess with this if you don't understand it. And there's really not a lot of point in explaining it, because again, this is just highly technical. This is mostly troubleshooting stuff. So that's about it for this one, ladies and gentlemen, but before we head out, I'm gonna select, because again, I've got Dark Souls 2 running in the background, I'm gonna go ahead and set up a scene so you understand how that stuff works too. So scenes are basically just like, think of them as like a scene for a play. All the different stuff is set up on the stage for the different scenes, and you can switch between the scenes because you know what equipment goes with which. Similarly, if you know that you play and record like 2 games a lot, you can select multiple scenes for like Dark Souls 2, and maybe you also play like Team Fortress 2, and then you can quickly select these to hot swap between them, but I'm mostly gonna play some Dark Souls 2. So I'm gonna go down here to Gamecaster, that's the primary capture that you use for video games. And I'm gonna name it Dark Souls 2, Scholar, because I'm playing Scholar of the First Sin. And then I'm going to select, yes, do capture any full screen application. Maybe I have to load into it really fast. Okay, so that ever so slightly borked my recording on, the Elgato game capture, but it should be fine. Now that I've popped into Dark Souls 2, now it shows up in this preview screen. And I'm just gonna let it capture this. I'm gonna leave all of this scaling alone. You can use force scaling if you're playing like a retro game that doesn't properly fill the screen. But most of that you could take care of in editing and post. So you can mess around with these as you need them. So I'll select OK. And I'll make sure everything is nice and centered. I could also add like a webcam to this, so I would go to video capture device and I would just call this webcam, and There it goes. So I don't have anything selected right now. Let me just select, say, the DxTory video footage, which is just going to be black. I don't have a webcam plugged into that computer. Then I can move this around by clicking on this little object, and I can resize my video, and I can put it anywhere I want on the screen, even kind of falling off the screen if I wanted. And then I've got also my webcam. And you could even get, like, webcams from your friends if they broadcast the webcams to you, so that you could do, like, I think that Markiplier guy did that for a while with his friends. But I'm not using a webcam, so I'll just delete that. And then I can start recording at my leisure. So we'll just pop start recording. And there's not a lot going on, I just made a new character to show you guys how that worked. So he's just kind of sitting there, and it's just kind of recording audio from my backup headset, which is sitting on the shelf next to me. It's plugged in, but I don't really use it much unless it's for a press event when I collaborate with the Feed Me Pixels guys. And now we should be good to go. Like, I'll stop the recording, and let me go into my settings. Actually, not my settings. Let me just go straight to my file browser. Let's go down to my space folder, and then we go into game capture files. Oh geez, look at all this stuff in here. Where is my Scholar of... Here it is. Scholar of the First Sin footage. Yes, play it. Do the thing. Look at it. Look at it. It's pretty good. It's got a good frame rate. I can see the fire moving. I can see, like, this dark halo effect around this bonfire. It works pretty good, and I think you could probably even hear, like, a duplicate of my voice in the background. So that's how you set up OBS for multi-platform use. It should be pretty similar on both Mac and Linux, but Mac requires Soundflower to get that running, and Soundflower's been having some bugs lately. But that is more or less how that stuff works. So if this was good for you, if this was helpful, feel free to like this video and subscribe, because that helps me out a whole bunch. And be sure to check out my tutorials channel, where I do most of my tutorial work, which you can find linked in the description of this video, and also in the sidebar of the main channel page. Thanks for checking it out, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions, or if some of this was confusing. And if there's a lot of common questions, I'll follow this video up with another troubleshooting tutorial that'll help you get into the nitty-gritty stuff. And I also need to do a tutorial that talks about these advanced output settings, because look at all this. Look at all of it. It's crazy. There's so much of it. Look at all that. Yeah, we'll get to that later. We're not doing any of that today. So toodles, everybody. Hope this was helpful, and, you know, again, I'm not the most knowledgeable about OBS, but I do know quite a bit about video recording in general, so I think together we can suss out your problems depending on what they are. So until next time, toodles, everybody, and have a good one.